All right, we got Thursday night football results. The Colts beat the Titans 34-17 in Tennessee. Let me just give you some stats from the Colts and Titans side. I'll start with the Colts. Philip Rivers went 29 for 39 for completion attempts. He had 308 yards and a touchdown. Pretty solid. Naheem Hines, I definitely butchered that.
Naheem Hines?
Yeah, Hines or however you say that. I definitely butchered that. He had 12 rushing attempts. He had 70 rushing yards and one rushing touchdown. He had 5 receptions, 45 yards and a touchdown. So overall, he had 2 touchdowns. Pretty good. Jacoby Brissett had a rushing attempt and a yards and a touchdown. Michael Pittman had 7 receptions and 101 yards. And as for the defense, Julian Blackman had a tackle for loss. My bad. Tyquan Lewis had 2 tackles for loss. Kawari Lewis had 8 tackles, and Danico Autry had a sack and a tackle for loss. And as for the Titans, offensively, Ryan Tannehill went 15 for 27 with completion attempts, 147 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry had 19 rushing attempts with 103 yards, no touchdowns, pretty surprising. Corey Davis had 5 receptions and 67 yards. Deonta Foreman had a touchdown. And as for the defense, Harold Landry had a tackle for loss. Daquan Jones had a sack and a tackle for loss. And Jadavian, I definitely butchered that. Jadavian, however you say that.
Jadavian
Clowney, yeah, he had a tackle for loss. So I'll start with Chris over there. What do you think of this game?
Oh man, this was a big AFC matchup, especially for the Colts. I don't know how many years it's been since Andrew Luck last played. I don't know if it's been 1 or 2. But for Philip Rivers to come in there and, now they are above 500, and that was a big win against the Tennessee Titans. It was a good game from him, but I think it was one of their key receivers right now besides, what's his name? I'm sorry. I'm zoning out right now. I know Michael Pittman is who I'm about to talk about. I believe he had over 100 yards in receiving. I think it was at 106 or 101 for receiving yards.
About for the Colts?
Yeah.
Is it the guy? Is it Ollie Cox? Is that it?
Oh no, I'm sorry. No, that's what I meant. Besides T.Y. Hilton, I was saying that Andrew Luck. I'm sorry. Forget I said that. Besides T.Y. Hilton, Philip Rivers found Michael Pittman as one of his other core receivers. But for any hopes and for the teams in the hunt right now for the playoffs, I think the Colts needed to win that game because I think it's going to be really neck and neck between the Titans and Colts for the top of the AFC. Obviously, these teams have potential, but the Colts had a defensive showdown against the Tennessee Titans, and you really didn't see much from Derrick Henry. Obviously, I believe he carried over 50 yards, but you didn't really see much scoring from the Tennessee Titans in such a run game that you did normally do, or should I say. But the Colts, how they played against the Titans was how Peyton Manning used to run the Colts, in my opinion. That was a good version of Philip Rivers we saw play the other night. Besides him spending his time with the Chargers, for him to come into the AFC and carry the team over 500 finally for the Colts, it started shaky for them. But to beat the Tennessee Titans, former division champions of the AFC, that's big for them, and that can do something for the future. So I think that was a good part on them. But we'll have to see how they play next week, and really it's going to boil down to those 2 teams really getting a playoff spot in there.
I'll say this before I get to Mario. Me and Mario had the Colts winning this game. Let me tell you why I had the Colts winning this game. That defense is electric. Going into this game Thursday night, they had the number 1 defense in the entire league. And they played and the defense held their own. Mostly this was an offensive job, and there's no argument about that. But the defense did their job as well, holding down Ryan Tannehill from throwing all those yards. More specifically, they held down Derrick Henry from doing his rushing magic. And overall, they just shut down the entire offense. And I think the Colts defense has a huge role in this win. And especially for now taking the lead in the AFC South, the Titans were the leader in the AFC South. Now the Colts lead that division, and this was a must-win for both games. Not both games, both teams. And I think the Colts really showed out. Philip Rivers did his thing. and the defense backed them up. And overall, this was a really solid win by the Colts. And I think this was an extreme statement win by the Colts. You know, they didn't really have as much expectations for a team, say like the Titans, because they dared come off a nice playoff run. Colts weren't. So the Colts weren't really expected to do much this year. But I will say this: the Colts are making a statement. They're one of the tougher teams in the AFC, and they're a team to watch out for. I'm gonna be honest with you. Your thoughts, Mario?
Yeah, I mean, so when we were predicting these games, I said it was going to come down to the Colts defense or Derrick Henry, and that's what it was going to come down to. And I was right that it did come down to one of those guys, but I was also wrong because Derrick Henry again also had a night. You know, again, didn't he have like how many yards did he have? 145.
Yeah, he had no. He only had. Oh yeah, he had 103 yards, but he didn't have a touchdown.
Oh, 103. Okay, I don't know who the hell had 100. He had 103 yards. But let me go to somebody else on the Colts that actually had a good game. Nino Hines. Nino Hines was a big reason why they won that game, in my opinion. Phillip Rivers was definitely a reason. Don't get me wrong. We know this. But Nino Hines was definitely a reason. I mean, when you have 100 total yards 120 total yards in a game with 2 total touchdowns, that does a lot for your team. And so with that being said, Nino Hines, in my opinion, I don't think he was as effective as Phillip Rivers was. He was definitely a big reason why they won this game. And Michael Pittman too, coming out of USC. You know, we knew this guy was a good wide receiver. A lot of analysts and draft scouts had him at like a top 5 wide receiver. But honestly, he's a good fit for the Colts. He really is. You know, especially him and T.Y. Hilton, especially when they got Ali Cox, who's another good wide receiver. I'm not gonna call him great. He's a good wide receiver. But Michael Pittman is really having his own. How many yards did he have this game? He had 7 receptions for how many yards?
Michael Pittman, he had 7 receptions for 101 yards.
Yeah, and that's a good game. Yeah. It really is. That's a good game. So I mean, the Colts, in my opinion, they did everything right. Obviously, that's a really good defense, you know. But Phillip Rivers did what he needed to do to win this game. Nino Hines did what he needed to do to win this game. Michael Pittman did what he had to do to win this game. Now, right, Derrick Henry did what he was supposed to do in order to win this game. What did Ryan Tannehill have? Can you read Ryan Tannehill?
15 for 27 completion attempts, 147 yards and a touchdown. So it's not really a great team.
He did okay. He didn't do great. That's the thing. In a game where Phillip Rivers was balling the way he was, you also needed your other quarterback not to play okay. You need your other quarterback to ball out as well.
Just as good.
It's as simple as that. Because again, when the passing game is not effective, it puts more work on the running game. And Derrick Henry, hey, I'm glad he carried that load, but it wasn't enough because that Colts defense had Ryan Tannehill's number that day. And personally, I think that between the Titans defense and the Colts defense, if you compared them, it's not even a question who was better. It hasn't been a question this year who was better. Obviously, the Colts. When you compare the 2 quarterbacks, it wasn't a question who was better. Phillip Rivers was better than Ryan Tannehill. If you want to compare the running backs, Derrick Henry did better. Absolutely. He did good. He did better. But again, Nino Hines, 2 touchdowns is more value than Derrick Henry's 145 yards, in my opinion. And with that being said, in my opinion, I think it's got to fall on Ryan Tannehill and that Tennessee Titans defense because you need to match what your other adversary is doing. Phillip Rivers needs to match what Ryan Tannehill is doing. And he did. And Phillip Rivers matched it and did beyond. Ryan Tannehill did not do his job correctly that game. He didn't do enough, in my opinion. Put it that way. And the Tennessee Titans defense, they crumbled under the pressure. Honestly, they're like a bottom 20 defense this year. I think they were ranked 20th before this game. That's definitely going to go down after this game. And the Tennessee Titans defense really needed to have one of their best games in order to match the Indianapolis Colts ranked number 1 defense. So in my opinion, Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans defense, in my opinion, I think that's what blew the game.
I agree.
Your observation of this game.
Yeah, Chris, you go first.
No, I was just gonna also say I'm not sure if you guys remember, Phillip Rivers took the Colts downfield and they got stopped at the 2-yard line on 4th down. They tried to get the touchdown in, but I also think not just the Tennessee Titans offense and Ryan Tannehill blew this game. I think it was the special teams. I'm not sure if you guys remember. Once they did get that stop, they went. I believe they went 4 and out, And when they punted the ball, the kicker botched it and put the ball on, I believe it was the 31-yard line going into the Titans' red zone. So once they put the Colts in red zone territory, I think Philip Rivers realized that, we just got stopped at the 2-yard line, our last drive. We need to score this drive. So he took advantage of that. And I believe the following drive after that, once the Colts scored, we had a missed field goal by Stephen Gostkowski again, which is another struggle. So I think the special teams is becoming a problem in Tennessee. So that's something we got to look out for.
I agree.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Especially when you kind of seen it coming in New England. With Stephen Gostkowski, you kind of seen it.
The season.
Kind of seen the hill coming. You kind of see him coming down the hill, and so New England knew we can't. I think he's on his last leg. Let's not re-sign him. Let's get somebody else. I think they made the right decision with Nick Folk. I mean, you're a Patriot fan. I can obviously tell from the background, so you can answer that for me. But honestly, that's a big problem right there. And Stephen Gostkowski, it's weird because he can either have a really good day or a really bad day. I remember, I think it was maybe the first or second week. Didn't he go 5 for 5 with against the Vikings? Actually, yeah. He went 5 for 5. I think he had 2 or 3 50-yard field goals, and he was banging every single one of them. And the week before that, he was playing terribly.
Yeah.
So it's either really terrible or he's really great. And that's the way I think it's been this whole year. And the Colts special teams too. I mean, Blankenship, I remember the Georgia kicker. That's a rookie coming in too. He's doing good things for them too, especially that you got to carry that legacy that Adam Vinatieri, left in Indianapolis. And honestly, when you look at it, besides maybe rushing, and you can even make an argument with rushing, I think the Colts just outperformed them. Your thoughts, Lee?
This is a Thursday night game. This is one of these games where this is going to definitely pay off in the long run, because this is not a game that you wanted to want. This is a game you needed to have. And this literally swings the pendulum of momentum in Indianapolis's favor and puts a stain on the Tennessee Titans season. I'm not saying they're cooked and dead out in the water. I'm not saying that. It's way too early still to start making those kind of predictions, because we just got out of week 9 coming into week 10. But I'm looking at all these statistics, Philip Rivers, Ryan Tannehill, all these tackles for losses. Again, I'm not seeing these within the context, and you guys have the context of the game. Me, I'm just kind of coming into this as an overviewer, looking at this and seeing this. I'm saying to myself, the Colts came in and shut the Titans down. They're number 1 ranked defense, and they did what a lot of teams couldn't really do to these Titans. They somehow found a way to tame Derrick Henry. Of course, Derrick Henry got in the triple digits with his rushing yards. That is to be expected with Derrick Henry, with the way he's been performing this season. But it still says a lot if you can tame Tannehill and Henry and basically shut down that offense, because I do not see any other offensive player on the Titans side having the statistics that I would say of a Michael Pittman or a guy like T.Y. Hilton doing T.Y. Hilton things. This is a game that will go down is one of those games where you look back on and say, ooh, they needed to win that one, or ooh, I'm glad they won that one, because this was a game that was needed by both sides. Indianapolis wanted to more capitalize on Tennessee's mistakes and their miscues, and were just the overall better football team that night. All due respect to both teams, but Indy deserved this one.
Absolutely. And I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time that the Colts and the Titans are facing this year, I believe. So remember, there's a second game.
But not the last. They got 1 week. So I was just looking at that because I was watching Game Day Live today. They play again the 29th at 1 o'clock. So they're going to Titans go to Indianapolis at 1 o'clock. So, the Titans have the Ravens next week. So, this could bury, this is really what it could boil down to. I'm looking at it as I'm looking at this too. What blows my mind is the Cincinnati Bengals handed the Tennessee Titans a loss by 11. And you know, if the potentially right here, you know, this is a tough stretch for the Tennessee Titans right now. You know, they just lost to the Colts, then they're going to the Ravens. I think they're in their bye week right now. But this is a tough stretch right here. We got the Titans have the Ravens, and then they play the Colts again, and then they're going to the Browns. So, you know, it's not a cakewalk for the Titans to just have a spot like they did last year. You know, you might see one of the teams in the hunt right now snag that from them. But these three costly games, you know, if they lose three, that puts them at 6-6. You know, and then the AFC is up for grabs at that point. But you know, costly losses, like Lee said.
Right, absolutely. And I believe like usually when two teams are tied, that second division win, in my opinion, has a lot more significance than the first division win that you did. So like for example, we'll take Buffalo and Miami. Buffalo could beat Miami the first time, but if Miami beats Buffalo the second time, that second one ends up becoming somehow a little more significant because if somehow they're neck and neck come the last games, they're going to go by that second division game, I believe.
Yep.
And so, again, right now, you know, Tennessee Titans got beat. You know, they got beat fair and square. Colts were just better than them overall, in my opinion. Who's to say it won't be the other way around come next division game? We're gonna have to find out. But in order to even get neck and neck, or in order to even wonder if that's even the case, the Tennessee Titans have to beat the Ravens after this bye week. They got to figure out what's going on because the past few weeks, the Tennessee Titans haven't been playing that great. You know, they lost to the Bengals. They got that loss to the Steelers. They barely beat the Bears, which was a game that I believe they could have blew the Bears out. And again, you lose to the Colts. They have to figure out what's going on here, you know, because last year was different. Last year, I believe they were like 1-5 or something, right? And then they end up just going on this huge comeback to get into the playoffs and go to the AFC Championship. This year, it looks like the complete opposite. It looks like you started off as a 4-0 team and as it looked like a powerhouse, and now it looks like you're doing the complete opposite of what you did last year. So now going into the bye, they got to figure out what's going on.
I completely agree. Overall, this was a pretty solid. I think, in my opinion, this is a statement win by the Colts because now they just took first in the AFC South. That's something the Titans could not give up this year, and that's something they just gave up. And a lot of people expected the Texans to be somewhat competitive this year, despite the loss of DeAndre Hopkins. But that hasn't been the case. It's really been the Colts and the Titans. And I think overall, in my opinion, if when the Colts face the Titans again, I think the Colts have to prove to the Titans that they are the better team in the AFC South. And they played this Thursday night game. They played like the better team. And I think moving forward, and even before they face Tennessee again, even the next games they have to play, I think they have to prove that they are an underdog and that they are the better team in the AFC South.
Hang on, you mean like do you actually mean like the Colts have to prove it to the Titans or the Titans have to prove it to the Colts?
I meant like the Colts have to prove to the Titans that they're the better team.
Okay, so you're saying the Colts got to beat them twice to prove that this is our division.
That they're the better.
Okay, yeah, I agree. But that second division game is going to be even more crucial than the first one. But it's only going to be that crucial if the Tennessee Titans can find out what's going on with this team, figure out what has been going on the past few weeks. If they can fix what's going on the past few weeks and they can go into Baltimore and they can win. Because honestly, I don't think it's that far-fetched, you know? Lamar hasn't been playing like MVP Lamar from last year. We all know this. You can look at the stats. You can check them out. You know, he still can run, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't been, passing-wise, he hasn't been the same. So with that being said, you could walk into Baltimore. You know, Lamar has a bad game. That is possible. And Derrick Henry has a good game, and you could beat him. That's exactly probably what happened last time, you know? What happened with Lamar Jackson in the playoffs against the Titans last year. So you can definitely do that. But again, if they're going to take another loss to the Baltimore Ravens, this division game might not even be as important as the first one. But if they can somehow figure out what is going on within these past few weeks and they can get a win off the Baltimore Ravens, then this next division game is going to be so crucial, and it's probably going to be one of the most important games in this NFL season.
I completely agree. You guys have anything else to add to this?
I do. For myself, I remember you mentioned other teams such as who else is in the AFC South?
It's the Texans and the Jaguars.
Texans and Jaguars. Jaguars are clearly trying to pick up pieces.
They're taking for Trevor. Or trying to.
Oh, I think the Jets haven't beaten that category. But the one thing I'm going to say for the Tennessee Titans, they went on this Cinderella-like run last year. They knocked out the dynasty, and they made it all the way to the Kansas City for
They almost beat Drew.
they almost beat the Chiefs, who went on to become the eventual Super Bowl champions. This year it's a combination of dominance, expectation, hitting the plateau, going down, and trying to fix whatever bug they caught. And I'm not trying to make any kind of comparisons to anything here. I'm just not. But the Tennessee Titans need to pick up the pieces now, because they're not in a division like the AFC East where they're the Miami Dolphins and they have a chance to get one of them playoff spots because one of their rivals is at the top of the AFC standings. No, you're in a competitive division competitive conference in the competitive half of the schedule. So if there is not a time to plateau and drop down, it's definitely not now, because Titans lose their next 2 or 3 games.
Their playoff stats gonna be no.
The fat lady is starting to tune up the band, and you know what cliche I'm getting ready to fire off. She ain't singing yet.
Oh,
It ain't. Fat lady's not singing yet, but she's starting to warm up. They need to fix things, and they need to fix things now.
I'll say this though, and this goes for and this is kind of like a team thing. This is what separates the good teams from the greats, right? And this is where I'll use a couple of examples. Let's talk about the Dodgers, okay? This team goes to the World Series, right? They lose. They go to the World Series again. They lose. They get beat in the wild card eventually to the Washington Nationals, who became the World Series champions. Then they go to the finals again and they win. So think about that. 3 out of 4 years, the Dodgers go to the finals, right? Now let's go to the Bills. The Bills lose the first Super Bowl. They go to the next year, they lose again. They go to the next year, they lose again. They go to the next year, they lose again. So 4 straight Super Bowls, they lose. But here's what you got to commend the Bills on. It is so hard. You have to be mentally there to go that far and do it again. And the Tennessee Titans went so far last year. They went so far. They were so close to a Super Bowl appearance, maybe even a Super Bowl win. They were so close to it. This is what makes good. This is what separates the good from the great. Usually, let's go to the Niners, right? The Niners go to the Super Bowl, right? What are they doing this year? And I know the injuries and everything like that. I understand that you can use that. But guess what? I go by, there's no excuses. It's the next man up. That's what I like to go by. Okay? So with that being said, you look at them. Then you look at the Panthers when they went to the Super Bowl 50. They never made it back. You know what I'm saying? What separates the good teams from the great teams is they're able to, when they suffer a defeat, when they go so far and they suffer a defeat, what separates the good from the great is the good end up kind of crumpling, or they end up going back to the playoffs, but they can't go back to where they were. The greats can end up going back to where they were time and time again, whether win or lose. And honestly, this is what's going to prove whether the Titans are a great team or just a good team. That's what's going to prove. If the Titans can if the Titans can climb that mountain and go back to where they were and possibly make a Super Bowl appearance this year, it's far-fetched, but it's not impossible. Then I consider the Tennessee Titans with Mike Vrabel a great team. And I consider Mike Vrabel, if he can go back to the AFC Championship and maybe even go to a Super Bowl, I can consider him a great coach. But this season is going to determine it right here.
I agree with you.
I agree. Does anybody else have anything else to add to this topic?
I'm good.
I would like to add on to this.
All right.
We gotta. Yeah, no, I'll speed it up.
Yeah.
I agree with you on this topic. This season is going to be a defining factor, and I know persistence in football leads the way. And from my personal experience, me being a former football player for my high school and everything, I'm kind of out of my element here because this is the NFL and I used to play in high school and everything. But I have seen teams that can pull it together. I've seen teams that have got too confident and fell. I'm looking directly at the Jacksonville Jaguars when I say getting overconfident. But this season, Tennessee, they're the only ones that can pull themselves out of this. Nothing else. They're not the Niners. They don't got the latitude of injuries. They can pull it together. They can make it happen. This season's the determining factor. Are you going to be mentally tough, or are you going to crumble under the pressure? pressure. You got to be ready for prime time.
I absolutely agree. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Overall, this was a great Thursday night football game, the best one I've seen so far. And overall, good win by the Colts.